Phil. It's so nice to see you.
Hi, Courtney. Nice to see you too.
I'm so glad we're talking such a busy time and life is busy, but I'm so grateful it just always just takes a breath of fresh air to sit and talk to you. So how we spend our time really matters, I'll say,
hmm
in
I
general.
feel the same way. Yes.
And it's always, there's, um, there's a theory, right? We could see how if we like something afterwards, it's how you feel. And so after I spend my time with you, I always feel happy and I feel light. It's a good
hmm
message, right? And there'll be people or sometimes where you don't spend your time with them. When you spend your time with them and it doesn't feel good,
hmm
your
Yeah,
soul
I feel,
knows. Your soul knows.
yeah. Yes, I feel the same way. I've said this before, I feel like my battery gets recharged every time we speak. So, and even when the conversations are not easy, and I think the conversation we're going to have today is going to be deep and a little bit confronting, but we want to look at this head on, don't we?
Yes, it will be I love that word confronting because I think it's heartbreaking, right? It's heartbreaking. So
And we're at the time of year where the days are much shorter. And just I don't know why, but it adds to the mix of feelings of deep loss and sorrow and trying to look at it in a way that you can still look at it and feel those things, but not let go of a ray of hope that lessons will be learned from this, and that everyone can agree that life is to be appreciated every moment, every minute, and that it's a blessing.
it's a beautiful way. That's just such a beautiful statement, right? To look at something that's the darkness and to see the lightness out of it, right? To see the beauty. Yeah. Because this is our life in this moment and it's a blessing. And we have, I keep thinking of this. You have this one light. What are you going to do with it? You could appreciate, you can be grateful. But we are talking about Nick and Carl, oh my God, Rob Reiner's chart, right? The death of Rob Reiner and the relationship with Nick. We talked about Rob Reiner before. Yeah, I appreciate that so much because we can look at things. This is what I do love about astrology. What astrology has given me is I can understand when things aren't going well and what I could do about it. And we have this podcast, and we called it If I Were You. And it's not necessarily that if I were you, who are we to say if I were you? But we are, I'll say for me, I use astrology to see my relationships with other people, how people affect me, and what I can learn about it. So it's such a nice thing, I think, to look at charts like this and say, well, what was the relationship? How could it have been better? Or how do we affect each other? And we all do. And just like I said, I feel very good after I speak with you. And I am very aware when I spend my time with people that I don't feel that way afterwards. And we have to
Yeah.
listen. And I do think that it's an important message for us all to really see how we feel around other people.
Yes. And I know, to mention Nick again, I know the night of the murders, he was at a party and kind of getting in other people's spaces. and which caused a very difficult scenario, and led to an argument which I'm sure could not have been an easy argument to have. They never are, but in a public, in a social place like that, and a high profile social place, I would add, right? Because it was a celebrity party, to have this happen must have been really, must have struck a deeper nerve than an argument they would have had at home. This again is just what I'm guessing at, but it must have been very unnerving to have this happen in the most unexpected place, at a get together where you're just
No, I have to say,
relaxing, having fun.
I'll say, from a, you want people to behave, and when people don't behave, it is embarrassing, especially when it's our children. I listen. I'm a mom. I've had children. I think this is so funny. I mean, I remember going to when they were little, and you want them to show up and impress people. And then the more you want them to like kind of fit in and impress them, the more they don't. And now I know this was a very grown man and it's not a child, but a parent's always a parent. So it feels, I think embarrassment, the word, I mean, I hate to say that, this idea of when things don't go the way we want it, how easy it is to be embarrassed. I hate that word to say. And is that what you were saying in a way?
Yeah, it's just that this particular scenario of being, imagine the parents' position where their son is there, not invited. They asked the son if he could join them, and the son shows up, and then the son just behaves inappropriately, and he is embarrassed. So he's feeling the sting of being embarrassed. And then the parents are feeling the sting of being embarrassed. And of course, they're they have this blow up at the party, which is the last thing anybody wanted, but it happened.
It happens. And I think that's, I always say you can't control what happens, but you get to do what are you going to do afterwards? Like how, like you can't control the situation, but what happens afterwards? And I think we go back to right now and anytime, let's just say anytime, because wherever someone watches this, whenever someone watches this, we have to learn to speak to each other. We have to learn to disagree. We have to learn to be uncomfortable with each other. Everybody. I mean, that is what a relationship is. Maybe there is no relationship without having maybe if you can't have a conversation, you're not in a relationship with someone.
That's right.
Right? I mean, so it's it feels very interesting because I mean, Charlie Kirk, right? Whether you like Charlie Kirk or not, he used to say this thing: we have to learn to dialogue, right? We have to learn to be able to have disagreements and have conversations. And when you don't, that's when people
Right.
go crazy, literally. Like it's when we have no more words to say. And it's I think that's partly what happened here, right? You see people, you see, I mean, right? Just it's just you know, we keep on having these very extreme experiences of deaths. And
Violent death.
it feels so normalized in a way. We're there's nothing normal about this. Whether whoever you like or you don't like, politics, unpolitics, color of skin, sex. But it is interesting how I was thinking about that right away. You could just it's mostly men, right? You notice that like all these scenarios, it's men. And I will say there's men and women are different, and men are from Mars and women are from Venus. I don't know. Anyway, it's an interesting conversation to have even about that.
And my other thought about this, all of this violence and anger, does it make us as a society more numb to these things? So we develop a hard skin about it so that we just move on without dwelling on the pain of it, because it becomes it becomes more commonplace. That's really, that would be, that would diminish all our humanity if that were to happen.
Yeah, I think that you're right. I think in some ways it feels like that's what's happening. And we're making each human life matters. And it's just like the next news cycle. It's just the next news cycle. And it really is, I don't know, something about this murder to me, I will say murder, has hurt my heart. Just that someone to imagine, I mean, this is dark, right? It's like to imagine that you're like someone you love could want to be so angry at you to do such a and wait, and this wasn't new. This was so my daughter, who lives in Long Island, the same story happened 2 weeks before in a deli. They had mother and a father were like had actually a warrant against the son, like had I guess where the son couldn't be near him, and slit their throats outside their deli. So this is not normal, and this is not acceptable. And there is, and we have to look and say, well, what are we doing that's could be different? We have to ask as a society.
Right.
And it's not gun laws. That is not the problem because you know you people will get guns, people will get drugs. It's not gun laws. It's mental health.
Right. A gun wasn't involved in this double murder at all. But I'm also thinking of the daughter who went into the house, you know, thinking the last thing on her mind is finding her parents murdered. I mean, it's all just,
It's too much. It's too much. And it is too much, except for what do we do differently? And can we learn from it? So we'll look at their charts, but there is something, right? Like, I think any parent that has a kid that there's any concern about, I'll say, make sure you have boundaries right now. So I will say that it's Jupiter right now is in Cancer and it's in retrograde. And I really think it's about making sure you're safe. So doing, and it's going to be for a while, right? Till the next year, Jupiter and Cancer. It's about making sure you're safe. And at some point, when you're a parent, you have to have boundaries. And
yes. And
that
I
is
think,
really, really hard.
yeah, I think in this situation, there was a leniency regarding boundaries, and the, the parents were filled with good intentions. That's completely understandable. And it's a very difficult situation to be in to to enforce something on your child that will ultimately be better for them, but will also create an incredible amount of pain. And
Yeah,
sometimes
I think
it's
it is so painful because sometimes what's best for your child is not what you think you should do. And we had talked so much about Rob Reiner. He did talk about that. He said that all of the experts were telling me against my will, like what I should not do. And it's not what I wanted to do, except for I think he was starting to listen to what he wanted to do and not listening to the experts. And listen, if anyone has any family that has addiction, I just think there is something called Al-Anon, and there is a very big gift in it. I do believe like Al-Anon and AA were very much channeled from a higher place, and they help. They help. Can you see the screen? Because I was like, should you? But we're not going to give so much attention to the whole Nick because we don't even know his chart in some ways. But maybe would you like to just look at the two charts together?
yes, that I think that
Okay.
would be great.
So I will close that, and I'm going to do it. Let's see. I'm going to do. I will. And are you seeing me do this, by the way?
The screen hasn't changed yet, but
Okay. Oh, Okay, so I'm gonna stop share.
There we go. So I see Nick and Rob now.
You do. Is it full?
Yeah. Yep.
Look at that. Okay, so
Look at this.
I guess it worked. So again, I will say that we know neither of their birth charts or their times. So we
Times,
know
yeah.
their birthday. So we know the planets are right. I will say the planets are right. And but we don't know if the houses are right. But I will just say we went over the Nick's chart a lot. I mean, Rob Reiner's chart. And if you're listening, I hope you're listening. Please go back and listen to Rob Reiner's because I loved our conversation about Rob Reiner. He is just such a beautiful artist and a creative. And so I will say he was born at the dark, dark, dark of the moon, Nick. And I think when we're born at the dark of the moon, if you see right here, the moon in Virgo, and then it's a new moon. So it is a new moon, but the moon hasn't reached the sun. And no matter what time he was born that day, right, he could actually be a Leo moon, right? Because we're not sure of the time. And he could be a Virgo moon. But there's no way he could be, it could not be a dark of the moon. So that's interesting just in itself. And
And
I mean,
there's sons are opposed. I found that interesting. And you
yeah. So
see,
so Rob's sun is opposite his whole dark of the moon experience. And how I see the dark of the moon is you really come to heal, and you bring a lot of things from a past life that are going to come up in this life that you're supposed to like let go and release. Like it's a very healing, but a lot of, I mean, he really was here to heal that whole Virgo perfectionistic judge, right? So, and then the sun, that Rob's sun, is opposite. It's like it's very uncomfortable.
yes, there's the ongoing long-term tension that
It's
has to.
opposite sexes when the suns are across, it's actually easier, but when it's the same sex, it's much, much harder.
And look at their nodes are exact.
I thought that was crazy. I mean, exact. Look at the
Exact.
degrees. It's like six. Look at that. Well, let's talk more about the sun because I was interested to hear what you think about the sun. But here, look at that. 6 degrees and 43. 6 degrees and 49. I mean, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, total karmic, but
Yeah.
opposite. So opposite. So again, opposites. It's like two sides of a coin trying to balance out. But when you were seeing the suns, what did you think about?
The same thing that there's always going to be a tension and that Nick, I think Nick's son is a little bit more complex, which made it seem like he was the power of, he was trying to make the power of his son match the power of his dad's son. And there might have been a lot of deep Freudian frustrations there. But their sons on opposite ends of the chart really do suggest that there's there's a there's an energy there that neither can pull away from, that they can't avoid it. They need to confront it and engage with it and find a balance. And that's where I think the dad could have made different choices in order to really be more confrontational about this issue with his son. And out of love for his son, he bypassed those confrontations. So I'm not judging anybody whatsoever, not at all. But I do see that that polarity with the son demands attention.
Well, it's so interesting that you said that because you said, okay, you said something really interesting. You said that he would need to confront things, right? And be more aggressive. And if you remember in his past life, right, Rob Reiner's, his Mars is squaring the nodes. And the thing he would have to learn is how to kind of be much more direct. Now, that's the Mars. What's so fascinating is it's right opposite his wound. So
Yes.
it's right opposite Nick's Chiron. So we're born with a wound. It's a memory. It's something we have to heal. You think about Chiron. You think, okay. First of all, if you're a Virgo out there, have any Virgo energy? I love, love, love Virgo energy because they do everything. The higher side does everything really well. They're here to make things better. They're here to kind of improve things. But the lower side is very critical and it's almost like it can never be perfect. It's very hard on itself. And I can imagine that I can imagine, just as my Nick never felt good enough. He couldn't feel good enough. And I think it was his lesson. It was not only just his sun and his moon, it was his lesson to like, it would have been my gift for him. I'll say, if I were him, I would have wanted to have a really good skill. Like, what could I have been good at? I might not be good at everything, but what skill could I have been
Yes.
really good at? And then if I could have acquired a skill, and again, his father had a lot of skill. And so then if you're comparing, if I think about the two sides of the coin, you can't compare yourself to your father, right? You're not your father. You're not supposed to live into his shoes, right? You're supposed to be your own. I mean, it's just so also interesting. Look at that Leo in Venus. Like he needed attention. Like he something about him wanted attention. And how do we go about it? And Phil, we could either get attention from being good or we could get attention for not being good. And if you get into the habit of getting attention for not being good, it keeps on happening until all of a sudden you pay attention to what you ever notice. You ever notice that maybe when you get attention for being sick, then someone's sick, or if you get
Yeah.
attention for being bad and doing bad things, and then the person starts to do something good. So if I were that would be a really good piece of advice to notice when someone was doing something really good and giving positive feedback versus noticing what's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Nick could have used, uh, again, I think really looking at his situation clinically and shining a light on it and again, confronting it and not bypassing it. So whatever, if that meant him moving to the other side of the country and enrolling in it and something that allowed him to develop his skills, and just let him fly.
You
I
know,
don't think that ever happened in his lifetime. I think I don't know what he did year after year, but I don't think that he strayed very far away from his parents.
well, he did say that. Like I read something, and he said that they was homeless for a while, and then he went off. You know, my mother sent my brother to Israel.
Uh-huh.
It was an interesting story. So my brother was having some stuff, and she sent him to Israel, and he was very young. And the reason why she sent him to Israel, his father was a doctor, not my father, different fathers, but his father was a doctor, and my mother always thought it's so hard for people when you have somebody that's very successful and in a certain way to
Yeah.
live up to that. And she
Mhm.
thought it would be interesting for him to go to Israel, where no matter who you were and no matter who your father was, you went to work in the army. Didn't matter you were special, you weren't special, you were all one, and then you had this purpose. And so she wanted him to have an understanding that he didn't have to be like his father. He didn't have to have the success his father had, that it was okay, whatever he did. He was his own person. I think when you have a father and you're a boy and you have a father that's super successful, how do you not compare yourself to that and judge your own self on that? And so I
Mhm.
think it was an interesting concept thought that my mom had, and it worked. I mean, I think it was very helpful for my brother. So again, you said sending him someplace else.
Right. Yeah. Again, I don't know if Nick ever attempted to do something like that, to go somewhere and train or learn something to get a degree. I'm not sure, but it certainly sounds like, if he was in the guest house at his parents' place, that he was never very far from
No.
the family
Well, and
nest.
yeah, they said, well, I think he was for a little while. I remember after the movie, they did a movie.
Right.
When they did Being Charlie, before he had been homeless and he had done that and he talked about it. I don't know how long, but here's the thing, if rehab doesn't work for somebody, then we better find something else. And I keep on wondering, did they send him to a therapeutic? There's therapeutic, not rehabs. Like, I was wondering about this question just in general. Is it okay in Hollywood, because everybody is pretty much has addiction stuff? I mean, you're looking at Bradley Cooper, you're looking at people that are very famous that have always said, hey, I'm an addict and I have a problem, and there's no shame in it. But what about mental illness? Do you hear people come out and say, listen, I have mental illness? And is it easier to say, well, it's my kid does drugs than it is to say that my kid has a mental illness and needs to be helped for that mental illness?
Right.
And not
Yeah.
just with drugs, because drugs are not the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot more shame around mental illness than there would be around drug use, and it's unfortunate that that's the case, and I hope that changes.
Well, I think you said something so interesting about how you hope that we learn from this. And
Right. I
I do
so
think that he had mental stuff from a very young age because, listen, I'm going to say, I go back. His South Node is in, Nick's South Node is in Gemini, right? So it's ruled by Mercury. It's like the ruler's Mercury. And so you just see Libra relationships. Somehow he was defined by a relationship. Something happened in his relationship. So again, in this lifetime, his relationships are going to be something he really has to work on. But you also see the sun, Juno, the moon, Chiron, all ruled by Mercury. Goes back to learning how to have conversations with people. He had to learn in this lifetime how to talk to people and express himself, and it wouldn't be easy. It, it's
yes.
it's going to be one of the hardest things he's going to have to do is to learn to have not be talked at, right? And what does it mean to have a conversation?
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
very
So you're right. We're going to learn so much more about what happened. In fact, we'll probably learn more than we would ever want to, considering the trial that will come up and all the information that will be, put before the court and then, exposed to the public as well. And I know another wrinkle in all of this now is the fact that his medications may have changed. So there's the medications, there's, you know, the whatever mental health diagnosis he had. There's it's all of it created was what is, clearly a tragedy. But I think all those elements together, maybe if you looked at them alone, they would be easy to identify and manage. But if they're diagnosing him with a mental health issue and then they're changing his medication and he's
And then maybe
He's,
he's self-medicating still, which I'm sure he
and
was.
yes, right? All
But
of
and
those
that's the
things.
thing. Maybe if you're on, here's a thought, just if you're on psychiatric medicines and that extreme of psychiatric medicine, should you be placed in a place where someone can watch you and check you? Because it's playing Russian roulette, right? You can't always control things. You know, it's interesting. The same part is okay. So Rob Reiner's Venus is in Aquarius, and remember me and you had this conversation about the genius he was with his creativity. What's also
Mhm.
interesting that it's in conjunct to Nick's Chiron, and so it's almost like they didn't understand each other. It's complete
Yeah,
like they didn't understand each other, and they wanted to understand each other, but they couldn't understand each other. And Nick kind of saw his father as kind of cold and out in the world, and he was warm. But that's the thing. We each, you ever see how we have like I'm maybe different with you than I'm with somebody else. I'm not different, but we interact. It's like someone likes me, someone doesn't like me, right? It's just
yep.
fascinating. I will say, if I were you, the whole idea of having opposite suns, if you think about what we're all here to learn to be our sun, and so Rob Reiner was here to learn how to surrender, right? Learn how to believe in God or source or go with the flow and not be able to control things, right? And then Nick was here to learn to be skillful, to be somebody that makes things better, and also not can't control things. And so if you talk about just letting go and letting God and understanding what that means, that it's not always going to go the way we want it. And right now, I mean, you think about just we're going through a very Piscean time. Saturn, I mean, think about it. Saturn was going back, right? Was retrograde. If it wasn't retrograde, it was in 10 degrees of his sun.
Mhm.
Wait, what did you notice the relationships with Saturn? So Saturn for so Saturn in Rob's chart was in Leo,
Mhm.
and the Saturn was in Aquarius. Again, different degrees, but opposite, com- total opposites,
Yep.
right? So he's probably around 45 when he had Nick. I don't even know. I'm just saying based on where the Saturn is, right? If it's 29-year cycles. How old was he?
70, was he 72?
So 47 to 93. Can you do the math quickly?
37 to 93. Gosh.
Or 47. Well, 50, 43, 47, about 47,
Okay.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
47. Right? Is that possible?
No. 33.
No, let's see. Wait, I'm using my calculator. We should probably edit this, but I talk about not being able to control things. 3
I
minus
guess it would have been, had Nick struck out on his own in some fashion, whatever it may have been, maybe in a long-term rehab facility, like a halfway house. I know people stay there for a year to get back on their feet or longer, whatever it takes. Had he been residing away from the parents, none of this would have occurred.
Let's go back to the original. That's a brilliant concept. So here, let's talk about people. So he was 46 years old probably when he had him 47, based on the Saturns. Again, opposites. Here's the thing: rehab doesn't work. You cannot change. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I think it cleans you up, and so it allows you to get clean. And maybe, but it takes a long time. If you have a habit, it takes a long, which is an addict, right? It takes a very long time to change your patterns. So I would say go back to when he was 14 or 15 years old and forget about then, right? It's easy to say now, but to look back, if you go to rehab, a halfway house is a brilliant idea because it allows you to be around other people that are also going to meetings. It allows you to actually be not responsible for your to your parents, and the parents are now the guards, or they said someone was, you go back, did you see that someone was watching him in the house? Yeah,
No.
supposedly he had like a somebody that was there to make sure he was safe. I saw that. Now also so did who's the other guy, who's the guy from Friends?
Matthew
Yeah,
Perry.
I mean we're
Oh yeah,
talking,
a caretaker person. Yeah.
and I'll say you can't, I don't know. There has to be such good boundaries and rules. And I think people don't like rules, but people, at the end of the day, people need rules and boundaries. And at some point, it's very hard for a parent. So I'll go back to what you said and say, I wonder if any of the times he went to rehab, I now think it's at 20. They're saying it's 20 times. Did he ever go to a a second place, learning how to incorporate it in? Because guess what? You're going to go to rehab and you're going to come back out and you're going to have the same people, you're going to do the same things, and it won't work. And then you can blame the rehab, but it's not the rehab. So I think that was a great, if I were you,
Mhm.
comment is to have a halfway house where it's a place where, but again, you have so people have so much money and you think, well, that's so below me.
Mhm.
And that's the thing, it's not below anybody, right? I mean, you talk about his Virgo moon and his Virgo sun and his Virgo Chiron. He needed to be doing something every day to make things better. He needed a purpose. And if you have a lot of money, you don't have a purpose. You have to have a job. I mean, people need a purpose. Everyone should be working, but especially if you have all that Virgo energy.
Yes, you're
Even
right.
if you work at a supermarket, get
Yes.
a job at the supermarket bagging
Yeah.
bags. You don't have to do anything big.
Mhm.
It's I think that's the kind of the miss. I think sometimes people think, oh, it's so easy to have money, but it's not that easy to have money because
Yeah. That brings a whole other set of circumstances.
my husband has a Virgo moon, and I always say you could have a problem with something and you could complain, or you can make things better. You have Virgo energy. It is all about doing something to make things better.
Mhm.
You ever notice if you're upset with something and then you go out and take care of the garden, you're just happier? That
Yeah.
would be a great thing for him when he was a younger boy, to have a garden and make him do it, or a farm. Move to a
Yes.
farm. That would have been a good idea.
Yes.
Move to a farm. Get away from
That
Hollywood.
would have been perfect for him.
Perfect.
Far away, live on a farm for a year. He would have found something that he probably would have liked, something that he could care for and nurture and make better. But the whole idea of going to a halfway house like that is that when you leave, you're stepping into your new life. You're not going back to where you were.
It's hard. And in relationships, you ever notice that in relationships, how it's hard to break patterns. So for parents and children,
Yes.
it's almost like well, okay, Phil, I'm a grown up. It took me a long time to change my relationship with my parents, right? Because you go
Mhm.
back and they kind of see you as the way that they are, and you have to kind of decide to do it differently. You have to figure out how to communicate differently. Every parent and every child.
Yes.
So,
And
especially when
there's
things, I'm going to guess it was probably a volatile relationship from the beginning.
yes. Yeah. It's that was it didn't begin with really good energy. There was conflict there from the beginning, and it puts people in a really tough spot. The parents, without question, it's a really tough situation to be in. But I think if there's anything positive that might be an outcome of this, is that we learn more about handling people who are suffering with mental illness and addiction, because I think there was some leniency happening with Nick and his father, and I think that led to this tragedy.
Well, what I keep on going back. First of all, you think about society right now, and it's okay that making, I mean, listen, you're legalizing marijuana. It's making people psychotic, right? So marijuana is now really bringing people into psychosis. A boy's frontal lobes are not developed until they're 25. I think it's a girl, it's 21. So this is a boy who did smoke, even if, listen, maybe he had mental stuff before, which is my guess he did, because we don't, when we're doing drugs, I think there's a reason for it. Something's not right within us and we're trying to self-medicate. So we could ask, well, what was it that they were trying to fix? Like, why are you having that drink? Or why are you smoking drug? Why are you smoking pot? And I think we're normal. I think it's a problem. We're normalizing drugs and making it seem so great. And we've seen it's just not so great. It's not so great. And so I think even
Huh.
go back to when he started smoking pot. Well, why? What was he trying? Maybe he was anxious. I'll say to you, that's a very good word for Virgo energy, right? Just
Yep.
anxiety. And I think we're anxious because there's something that's not right. And what could we
Mhm.
do? What could we notice? The shadow part of it. I just think go back to, I always think, okay, well, if you had an astrologer, you think about the astrology and said, there's nothing wrong with you. You have a mind that's scattered and hurts, and you have to learn to focus. I'll bet
Mhm.
you, like, there could be some ADHD stuff from a very young age. I wonder if,
Mhm.
it was hard for him to learn in school
Right. And who knows how well these things were identified, or they might
or
have been
wanting to be
clear.
faced.
Right. That's right. So they could have been identified, but not faced. They could have been just too difficult for mm, his loved ones to embrace that idea that, a member of my family has these difficulties.
Yeah. What we see, right? It's so common. We're living in a world where it is so common that you have something, right? Anxiety. We were talking about this, my daughter and I. So as a parent, we don't want our kids to feel like we're so worried if they're not feeling good.
Right.
And so it's so easy to say to okay, put a band-aid on it and just
Yeah.
and not deal with the root of the problem. And I will say, if we don't deal with the root of the problem will get bigger. I think it's a message for everyone right now. It's like, what's at the root? And then when we
Mhm.
could look at the root, you know, it then we can change things. But I think we live in a world where everything's instant. So let me just take a pill and then I'll feel better, or let me just take, a shot, and it doesn't help anything. It doesn't make things better.
Yeah. I think I think the minute you shine a light on something like that, it already starts to diminish its power. Even just like focusing on it and naming it, that's kind of a start. And it's not easy. None of it is easy, but it can start to make the change that you want.
Yeah, life is. But okay, so I'm going to say this because I'm very big into this. Just because someone's sun, I'll show you the chart again, is opposite someone's sun, actually doesn't mean that you can't get along beautifully. It means that you can
Yeah.
actually get along absolutely beautifully. It's just you can learn from each other. There's something you
Yes.
have to learn from each other.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any bad charts. I think, for instance, the fact that their nodes are opposite each other, right? But they're exactly the same sign. what could they have learned about thinking and what they believe, and maybe the being open-minded. Like they were here to teach each other something. We're all here to teach each other something, and see something in ourselves. And I will say to you,
Mhm.
as a parent, a father, I'm sure, mother, a lot of times when our kids are very difficult for us, it's because it's something within us we have to look at in ourselves that we're
Mhm.
not willing to look at.
Mhm.
So
So yeah, I agree that all everything in a chart is an opportunity for growth and understanding and more self-awareness. All of it. So an opposition can be high energy, but there's also an opportunity for a direct, a straight line to connect those energies. And it's asking you to look at that energy and balance it, find a way to bring it into balance.
yeah, and people, if we learn from other people, right? And so, for instance, this beautiful boy was going to learn from other people, right? Okay, you want to see something interesting? I'm a big Eris person, and Eris, I believe is, am I doing the best I can do? Am I doing the best I can? Right. So there's Eris. Eris is literally opposite his. So Rob Reiner's Eris at 5 degrees Aries is opposite Nick's Mercury,
Hmm.
5 degrees, which is the ruler of his past life. And so I'll say, just Eris is like our own anger, our own upsetness. And I will bet you that he felt, again, not that it's fair, but Nick from a very early age felt very judged and very, and also, I mean, this is actually super interesting too. Rob Reiner's Jupiter in Scorpio is on Pluto. So, I mean, it's just going to intensify or make bigger his own Nick's emotions and anger and upsetness. This doesn't allow at all say that it's okay to do what he did. I'm not saying that. I'm saying to you, I think we can learn about how we affect each other when we understand astrology better.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's never okay to harm anybody.
Right.
Right? Never. I mean, there's never an excuse. No one. No one. I mean, this is where I have a hard time, Phil, with.
So I'm just thinking now, if let's say Nick is diagnosed with schizophrenia of some kind, that he's not so schizophrenic that he did not understand what happened. So he has to sit with that feeling of what he did for the rest of his life. That's hard
That's
to
that's
imagine.
that's punishment enough in some ways. Like in
Yes,
some ways,
yes,
you know, I do think
yes.
he was on suicide watch, right? From right
I
away.
haven't heard that, but I wouldn't be
Right away.
surprised.
I think right away when they brought him in, he had a suicide jacket on. I
So
mean,
all the way
nobody.
around.
I think deep down we all listen. I believe even if you're not there, like someone's that completely not there, their soul is there. Your soul is there. You know deep down what's right or wrong. But I will say, do you ever hear Dr. Amen? Like, do you know who Dr. Amen? He's a brain doctor.
No.
So he's a brain doctor. He's brilliant, and he studies the brain. This is what I think. First of all, I think anyone that kills anybody else, I think that there's should be we should start to study the brain and see what we could do. And he's a big advocate for food, changing what you eat, and right. So just food. You are what you eat. So what are we eating? What are we doing with our time and our? But he heals people. Like he completely heals people that from concussions, from people that were completely gone, from dementia.
Yeah. So yeah, there'll be so much more information coming out now.
But
And
I wonder, do you just, what about the defense? In some ways, do you think anyone, if someone kills somebody, should there be a reason to say, oh, well, it's okay because you have this diagnosis, or it's not okay?
yeah, it's a great question. And it's all of that, like I said, it all of this will come out and people will have to make decisions and we'll have to make a decision as a society too. You know, how will how will we look at risk people like Nick in the future? But his parents are at risk too,
Well,
looking back on it.
parents were at risk too. And do you know that there are no mental? So it's so interesting. I actually do know this. There's there's programs where you could go for 8 weeks or 10 weeks. There's no mental institutions like there used to be. When we were younger, there was something called a mental institution, and you could put someone in a mental institution. I don't think that they exist anymore.
I think you're right. I don't think they do.
And so I think now prisons are mental institutions. Could we figure out a way as a society to understand mental illness and create, I don't know, our food really matters.
Yeah.
I swear,
Yeah,
I
it
keep
could
on
be
thinking that, like, food, like, just our
right.
food really matters in the United States. Our food is just, there's so much stuff in our food. I mean, I'm not saying it was the food. I am not saying that, but we're having a society of people that seem to be getting worse and worse and worse. And we have to look at what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It doesn't make it any. He said in the beginning that it was such a hard conversation. And it is a hard conversation, but maybe we have to have hard conversations.
Yeah, it's the only thing I can hope for is some kind of growth as a result of this. I don't know how, either growth as a society, of course, but as an individuals, maybe this will serve as a life lesson for others because they'll be more informed. They won't be so isolated in the situation. I'm sure people in this who have family members like this, the family unit probably feels very isolated too, and confused about what they should do. So maybe if there wasn't such a stigma attached to this, then parents and families would feel more free to seek help of some kind.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting idea of stigma. You know, Phil, we're experiencing so much. You said, are we making this normalized? We're living in a time where so many people are murdering people, and there's parents that are involved in this. And it's so interesting. People could blame the parents, and I'll say, I don't. At some point, everyone's responsible for themselves. And I think that there's something about self responsibility and also maybe not being shamed. Like, for instance, not having shame around our anyone's children or parents that have mental illness. I think you're right. I think that we have to have these conversations that are really uncomfortable. But we are going to have more and more psychosis. We're going to have more and more schizophrenia. We're going to have more of this because we're we're just putting a lot of bad things into our bodies. I go back to that. It's just not okay. In what lifetime the kid was 14 years old and going to rehab? So in what? So there is some responsibility on the parent side. Like, well, where did you get kids get drugs? Where did your? Not blaming the parents, but I'm saying to you, how did your kids get drugs? How did they get the money for the drugs? How at a certain age? Don't let your
Yeah,
kids be doing drugs at 14 years old. Don't let your kids drink at 14 years old.
right.
So it's stay clean. I go back to that.
Yes.
I just go stay clean.
Yeah. That's what it comes down to, I think.
I do. I think, you know, it's interesting. Do you have to go? Because I see, are you on a time frame? But I don't even know what
No,
time.
no, no, no. I'm good.
Okay, here, let's talk about something very controversial. Rob Reiner had a very hard time with Trump, very hard time, like hated Trump. right? And very openly angry at Trump. And I'll say to you, it's so interesting to me because I keep on thinking about people that blame their anger outside themselves, because I think we're supposed to be seeing our own anger, right? Chiron and Aries. We're angry. Everyone's angry. Trust me. Everyone has it. I have anger in me. You have anger in you, right? And what I think is so interesting is he was so angry at Trump, and I'm sure he was angry at a lot of things, but he was very vocal about his anger toward Trump. And I wonder if he was vocal about his anger towards his son in some ways, right? And so, someone that he really loves. But what's interesting is, do you know that Trump had a really big rule? If his kids were caught with drugs or alcohol before they were 21, well, first of all, drugs, but I think he had a very severe rule about alcohol before 21 years old. And if their kids were to drink, he wanted nothing to do with them because his brother had died of
That's
addiction,
alcoholism.
alcoholism. What's interesting about Trump, whether you like Trump or not, this is not about that. He got on a podcast and said to kids, I have never drank ever. He never has touched alcohol in his whole life. I thought that was so interesting. And he said, and if you can never do it, you'll never miss it. And I thought, I have never heard anybody say that to somebody. I thought, that's good advice.
Mm-hmm.
But we live and we watch movies and they glorify alcohol, and now they're glorifying marijuana. And I think it's a very big problem. Anyway, I just think it was interesting because sometimes the people we dislike the most, they have something to
Yeah.
teach us.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
this is a man who is, you look at Trump and you could say anything you want about him, but he was very rich, very well known, very famous. Everyone loved him, just like Rob Reiner before he was in politics. Everyone loved Trump. Like, he was the number one show on NBC. Everyone loved him. And yet his kids are clean and they're
Mm-hmm.
okay. And
Yes.
so it is interesting.
Yes. It's a really good point. Really good point.
Not an easy point, but
Not an easy one, but that's that's kind of eye-opening for me.
yeah. Maybe the people we dislike the most, we could find a way to figure out what it is about them that bothers us.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's there they can't be completely wrong, or my impression of them can't be completely dark. There has to be other things about them that perhaps I'm not seeing that
Yeah. Well,
that
and I
are
think that's true. Like, I think we're in an illusion right now, right? You have Neptune and Saturn next to each other. What am I not seeing about everything? Something we're not seeing in the bigger picture about something. But it is interesting about the drugs and alcohol. And I do think there's something with that Saturn Neptune that's saying you can't do it being drugged out. Drugs are not going to help.
right.
So, and that's not what society's telling people, by the way. They're saying, let's just legalize it everywhere. Let's keep on doing it. And it's healing, and it's not healing.
I agree.
So anyway,
Thank you again. Wonderful, wonderful conversation. And I do feel uh, really uh, thrown off the saddle by this. But it also makes me appreciate everything a lot more. Life, it's precious.
it really is, right? Just that we get to wake up and be alive every day is a gift. So I
It's
think,
a
and also just my hope for that whole family is that they forget, not forget,
right.
but I guess forgive every part of the story
Yes, every
so
part.
that they can move forward and they can live their life fully.
Yeah.
So,
God bless them.
God bless them.
God bless you.
God bless you
Thank
too.
you. Okay.